So all of this is brain at work. And brain at work is the idea that businesses can absolutely restructure their way of working or rethink and educate without making everyone work less. So actually with making everyone work better and more, but not necessarily more hours. So better or
Okay.
same result in shorter time. So that would
Smarter,
be the
not harder.
concept.
Yeah.
Smarter, not harder. Exactly. And all based on how the brain actually works and based on education and a diagnostic and a quick restructuring. That sounds like it's like this. Normally, it's not like that. So it would take a couple of conversations and looking into it. Ideally, it's in person because, of course, in person, it's a bit better. But if it's someone really far away, we can absolutely also do it by video. There is no problem.
Well, welcome to this week's episode of Connecting the Dots. This week, we're getting to know Tanja and what a mix she is: an adventurer, a polyglot, a traveler, a mother, a twin, a self-taught neuroscience nerd who has turned that curiosity into a business. And here's what I love about what she does. She gets us focused on the brain because we spend so much time looking after our bodies, our strength, our nutrition, our fitness. We completely forget the organ that's running the whole show. So today we're going to talk about the brain, what brain fitness means, or at least how Tanja has come to define it, because she'll be the first to say she's the translator of the science rather than a researcher in it, and she's helping people and companies put it to work. Tanja, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. That was a beautiful introduction. I don't even know what to say more to that.
You can use it as your bio. We'll cut and paste it in LinkedIn.
Definitely. Oh God, I'm going to so copy a couple of things. I love the fact how you also painted the picture as a translator because that's exactly how I'm seeing it. And don't get me wrong, I love researchers and scientists and everything. I mean, that's what I'm basing myself off of their work basically. But
Sure.
I'm here to translate that into everyday language and to make it maybe palatable for
Mhm.
the normal manager, for the normal employee. I mean, normal sounds so broad, but like for everyone. Let's just say for everyone. And that's what I did also in Hong Kong when I had the nutrition business. So my aim was not to get something perfect for everyone, but my aim was to explain why you feel the way you feel. And that kind of led me then to today, where, okay, there was another piece missing of the puzzle. Why do we feel the way we feel? It's also the brain. We have to look at everything, actually. We have to look at us as holistic beings. So it's nutrition and the brain and sports and everything that's part of that. And that's how I ended up here.
It's all interconnected, and I think you're just
It is.
taking it on piece by piece.
Yeah.
So connect the dots for us. Like I wasn't being boastful when I said all of those wonderful things about you, because you are an adventurer. You speak multiple languages. You've already had many careers and so many life experiences that create this rich fabric of who you are. So connect the dots for us.
Okay.
How did you get from hospitality to nutrition, into the brain? Tell us.
Okay. Yeah. Um, love connecting the dots, by the way. Okay. So if you told me, and I'm going to try not to make it long-winded, but it is a bit of a path. So if you told me maybe 20 years ago when I was at the Holiday in Frankfurt City South Conference Center, that today I'd be here, I don't think I would have believed you. But I promise you, there is a recurring theme in all of that. And so starting off in hospitality was actually the best thing ever because to the day I have routines that stem from that time that I only think I was aware of them in the last years when I started to connect the dots a bit more, that I have really healthy routines when it comes to discipline and structure that stem from hotel time. And I have to say, one of
Mm-hmm.
the best foundations before my economic studies ever was to work in a hotel. And so then, I went the whole kind of like more business part with my economic studies, recruiter, headhunting, and so on. Did that also in Hong Kong. And that's then when I started, however, to ask the questions after seeing so many candidates. Can't tell you an exact number, but I think I saw probably, if it's not 1,000, it's close under it. But I interviewed a lot of candidates. I saw a lot of managers. I saw a lot of structures. And one thing that I kept asking myself already back then was, why are some people with similar performance, no, sorry, with similar capabilities, with similar
Hmm.
backgrounds, why is there such a massive difference in performance sometimes? So that question kept on eating at me, and my entrepreneurial side came out more and more. So then that's where I started the nutrition business. Back then, I think I had up to four consultants sometimes working with me.
Oh,
And we did
wow.
also corporate seminars and things like that. And we dug more into this whole why do we feel the way we feel? Why, or no, we did this also in terms of performance seminars. And that, however, was not the total piece of the whole picture. And in the last years, especially in France, I worked with more and more universities and business schools here. I saw also the difference in students in terms of why are some so much more, I don't like the word, but motivated than others, high performance versus
Hmm.
low performance. And I don't think nutrition was the whole answer. And that's where then I got more into digging my knees into the research. I have published my first book with a lot of research behind it. And my second one is hopefully coming soon. I'm currently hunting for publishers because it's really cool. It's also based on a lot of neuroscience, but it's making it super accessible for everyone with
Hmm.
illustrations. And the aim is basically again to describe to you why do we feel the way we feel and what makes a person better in performing better. Such a nasty word, but not. I mean, it is. There should be no judgment. But how do you perform better in certain environments and maybe not as good? And explain that now also to businesses because I think they need to hear it too.
And what I hear when you talked through your story is like there's so much psychology that gets you curious, right? Like, I mean, from you basically interviewed candidates, thousands of candidates, and that's like this huge pot of qualitative gold in terms of like studying the person. And then I'm also passionate about nutrition. You and I overlap a lot there. Like I've done
Yes.
deep courses, not like a degree or anything, but it's like a side hobby because so many choices that you make in your life have to do with food, and it's
Oh yes.
very easy to make it very emotional, make your choices very
Mm,
emotional, and that has such
mm,
downstream effects for your health.
yeah.
So anyway, like there, and then understanding why you're doing what you're doing in terms
Mm,
of nutrition is always,
mm,
at its heart, it's
mm,
understanding human behavior and psychology. And so
mm,
when you broadened your net into, okay, let's look at the brain and why we're wired the way that we are.
mm.
I mean, I think you're just going to keep on getting wider as you continue
Oh
to
yeah.
pursue your curiosity.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you never stop learning, A, in life anyway, and B, that's kind of part of the deal. I mean, I did my certificate in, as a neuroscience coach, but that's
Hmm.
not, I mean, that's a basis. So you
Sure,
continue to dug your heels into research left and right, and you get more and more. And also the beautiful thing is research advances as we go.
sure.
You know, the there is more and more research around a lot of modern topics recently, which is great. How it impacted our social behavior. If you go, for example, more digitally, I don't want to go maybe in all the way in this direction, but we have more and more research now for all of our online behavior and our multi-connectivity that we always have the feeling where we have to be connected everywhere. And that's how we now bust a lot of myths in the last years as well. For example, one of my favorite myths to bust is multitasking, because by now we know that multitasking does not exist. It's made up. It's an illusion because some people are just better and switching from task to task, but you cannot do two things at the same time. You're just very quick in switching, but that's exhausting. And that's then where words like mental load and cognitive load and things come from, because you're just so good in switching from task to task that you end up being exhausted. And all
Well,
of that, yeah, sorry,
I'm just thinking about like
yeah,
what I've heard about this because I am one of those people who switch a lot. I have to switch a lot
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
I work with different, well, okay, I'm a woman,
Yeah,
and on
yeah.
top of that, in my business, I work with different people, different clients, like different
Mm,
companies, so I'm constantly switching my hat and switching my perspective. And
mm.
there are times at the end of the day where it literally feels like my brain is a wrung out sponge. Like it's like,
Yeah.
and I think there was a neuroscientist that I was following on Instagram. Wendy, can't remember her last name. Sorry, menopause. I'll put it in the
I'm
show
gonna try
notes.
to find her. Yeah,
Yeah, and she was talking about cognitive residue that,
yeah.
and I think that's what you're talking about, that builds up the more
Mm,
you switch gears, and that
yeah.
you have to, like, through rest, through reset,
Mm.
clear that residue out before you're able
Oh,
to
yes.
perform well again. Okay. Okay, so I
Yeah.
understood that correctly. Okay.
Yeah, no, research and I didn't, you're right. I mean, you're so right with mentioning research and research, reset and rest because it is a foundation of our performance. And a lot of people skip over that because they always think if you perform, it means you're constantly on. And that's not
Hmm.
at all performance. Performance means durable, sustainable performance. And that includes rest because without rest, the brain cannot, let's call it, clean itself. Okay. If
Hmm.
you don't sleep well, and that's a whole other conversation, especially because you just mentioned menopause, there is so much to it. If you don't sleep well, if you don't take breaks throughout the day, and again, we are in a culture where maybe breaks mean you're lazy, and it's not if it's done right. I mean, there is a break that is good and there's a break that's not good. Those are two different things. If you want, I can give you examples later. But if we
Hmm.
do breaks and we sleep well, our brain is basically cleaning itself. And that's where this residue gets taken out. So take it as literally the brain is taking the trash out. And if you don't have that, you wake up every day and you're more exhausted. It's one of those things where we can explain why some people wake up more motivated than others because
Hmm.
they just have less trash to deal with, maybe, right? On top of everything else, without making it too complicated, of course, this is a very general talk. There are different personalities and different body types, different metabolic types, all of that. So some people like you, they're just you're also fast, I would imagine. As I have to say, so am I. I'm really fast in switching. That is part of my personality. So there are some people who are more prone towards that area, which is why maybe people would look at you and would say, "Oh, you're so good at multitasking." No, it's just also it's part of your personality. So biology can explain all of that, but it's never an excuse, right? So people who are very fast typically would need to remind themselves to take a break because biology explains, but it's not an excuse. So you tend to function that way, but if you don't take breaks, you will be looking into burnout and all of these things.
And then you get into the shoulds, right? Like,
Yeah,
we should do it, but then do we do it?
yeah.
So what I
Mm,
think is so wonderful about your example of pursuing this passion is there are many people who are interested in, um, a topic, a domain, a
mm,
category, and I think that they could learn a lot from your personal development process. Or I think it would be helpful to share your personal development process so that it might create a map for other people.
mm. Okay. I have to say, first of all, no one is perfect. So I still procrastinate.
No, we love the messy. We love the messy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that is also normal. For me, what always helped me was my curiosity to understand why. Why do things work the way they work? Why do we feel the way we feel? I was never satisfied with this answer because I
Yeah.
think my mom told me that my sister and I we were one of the kids who talked the most, and that was something that also the teachers resonated. As in, you daughters talk a lot. They ask a lot of questions, but so for me that was a good thing because this curiosity led to researching. This curiosity
Hmm.
led to asking the question of why, and the question of why is so important because then that leads you to the answers, and when you understand the answers, you have more empathy with yourself, you have more
Yeah.
empathy with your surrounding because then you know why. So when I have a day where I start to procrastinate, I know exactly why, right? I may still do it, but I am able to stop it. And I'm not beating myself up about it. So that is, for me, understanding what's going on is the key to doing something that's good for you. Because then
Okay,
sometimes you can nudge yourself, you can force yourself to do the right thing,
sure.
if that
So
makes sense.
let's go deep on the procrastination, because that sounds like that was
Yeah.
something that you got curious about the why. So like,
Mm.
how did you frame like, what was the moment where you're like, okay, I'm done. Why is this happening? And then what did you do about it?
Okay. So, um, well, I asked myself the question, why can I not focus on this one thing? And why am
Hmm.
I cleaning the kitchen? I don't know, right? Something very typical, but
This is
I love a clean kitchen. I don't know why. It's so stereotypical, but I love a clean kitchen. Or, why am I sorting the sock drawer? I don't know. Why am I doing
Mhm,
something else than this right now? Or I was focusing on studying one topic and suddenly I started to write another book. Like why? Why does this happen? So we are prone as human beings, brown, sorry for my accent sometimes, to notice differences.
okay.
We are, as human beings, because look at evolution without going too far back, but our brains, there are studies that say 200, now new one said 300,000 old, 200 to 300,000 years old. That's the structure of our brain. Back in the days, we're still running on this old survival logic. And back in the
Hmm.
days, a small little noise could mean danger. So to the day, our brain thinks that a little noise needs to pay attention to. So a little noise means you have to pay attention to something. So that's a root of procrastination. So procrastination just means that your brain is alerting you of something else. And that might as well be something that needs to be cleaned, a research that needs to be done because it's in there. So once I understood why this comes up and why I am distracting myself, couple of solutions. So, for example, when it's about research or work and you do one thing, but you think of another project, write it down. The moment you write it down, you offloaded the mental load or the thought that is in your head because you promised yourself on paper you will do it later. And then you get to do it later, but it's out of your mind. So that helped
Hmm.
immensely for me. And when it comes to all of the other things that are staring at you when you work from home and you think, oh, I should do this in the corner of the house, there, the simple answer is willpower. You have to ignore it. You have to live with the appreciation that sometimes life is messy and not perfect. And, that was a hard conclusion as a native German for me to understand that sometimes it's not about perfection. Sometimes you just have to accept that it's not perfect. Sometimes you have to stare at those dishes and just let them be. And you will get to them later when your brain is anyway tired and you do simple tasks. But you're not using your most important hours of the day to do something that you
To
should.
wash a dish. Yeah. Okay. And I think what you're talking about is so relatable. I mean, procrastination is something that everyone deals with. And,
Mm,
those of us who have like more impulsive tendencies, don't want to just do the dishes. They want to reorganize the whole kitchen once we
mm,
got into it. And if it's me, like my thing that I always want to deflect, like the more I don't want to do something, the more likely I am
mm,
to search for an alternative. So mine is
yeah.
financial administration. It's the end of the
Mm,
quarter. I've got like at least 2 more hours of financial administration before I can send the thing to my accountant. And wouldn't
yeah.
you know, the past 2 days, I spent an extra 5 hours on editing podcasts. I learned
Yes.
skills that I didn't know were possible,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
have not done my financial administration.
I mean that plays a role. It's actually a really good example because sometimes it's also a little bit of a choice. It's not just the distraction, it's also the I don't want to do something.
Yeah.
And that's just personal preference and that's just part of being human. So we have to also accept that we can't punish ourselves for preferring certain things over others, right? Yet you have to do them. So in that case, if you find the time, you probably deep down inside, you're gonna find the time for the 2 hours still, maybe, right? Maybe
I
after
know,
this,
I
I
know.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you will. And on the other hand, well, this could also be, I mean, I'm talking fairly general here, and
Hmm.
we could look not too much into this is neurotypical behavior, but of course we have all of these different nuances of some brains work differently than others.
Yeah.
And we do have studies by now, for example, that not certain, but if you're ADHD, like, in that kind of category, that you actually need the stress in order to do a task. You need the deadline. So sometimes it helps to actually write a deadline down for yourself. And that's when sometimes you get crazy deadlines. For example, you say, okay, by today, 3 p.m., I have to have finished this. And someone else would look at you and say, why by 3 p.m.? No one imposed this deadline on you, but you imposed it on yourself because you know that you have to have this deadline to do it. And if that's how you work, well, then you can work with it. Again,
Yeah.
because you have an explanation on how it works. So, I keep on coming back to the same answer that if you understand, or once you understand how everything works, you can manage it. And the skills that you learned, by the way, the 5 hours plus that you did, I mean, those
Hmm.
are skills that are worthwhile as well. So this kind of really key focus on something, that's not a bad skill to have either, right? Kind
No,
of.
no. And I mean, and everybody, I think the thing is, like through your curiosity, like there was something in you, what I hear you say anyway, and always correct me if I'm paraphrasing incorrectly. But what I hear from
Mhm.
you is like you noticed something about yourself that you didn't understand, probably frustrated you, and then you got super curious about it. And
Mm,
and the thing that I'm sure has happened because you keep on referring to the research. Like you take a deep dive in PubMed, and that is like once
mm,
you start reading
mm,
academic research, scientific research, I mean,
mm.
like respect. That is so dry to me. I'm like, that would put me to sleep. That would be my bedtime hack. So I think it's a really cool superpower that
Mm,
interests you and that you can take something so nuanced and then bring
mm.
it back to people who don't have the attention span for that,
Okay.
and show them
Yeah.
how to apply it to
Yeah.
themselves. That
You
that's
know what I
that's
love?
phenomenal.
And I do, I mean, thank you. I do admit sometimes not everything is super interesting, huh, that you read. But what I love and where, I mean, it kind of fits the theme of connecting the dots is exactly that moment when you start connecting the dots, when you
Sure.
start to understand why why do we function this way? Because it's actually this and that and that. And it's like, oh my God, yes, I heard or read this. Is it true? Let me just double check. Okay, yeah, that was real. And and suddenly is this eureka moment. And you understand, oh my God, yes. And that's the moment that it's worth it. Because that's the moment that you're aiming for, where you can then ideally break it down for others in simple ways and say, fun fact, did you know that, often when you crave sugar, you're actually thirsty? Not always, but you have these general fun facts you can just then bring to the table in a relevant manner because mostly it's connecting the dots.
Okay, but
Or when I
what if you're craving
yep.
gummy bears? Is that
I
still?
thought of you with gummy bears. um, look into water as well. I mean, there are so many different factors that could be relevant. One of the first things when someone having sugar cravings, and gummy bears, very typical for sugar cravings, so I'm going to categorize that under sugar cravings,
Okay, okay.
would be indeed water, hydration, but it could also be just a energy deficit. And I
Mm,
don't love to think and say calories because the way our body is using energy with our, mitochondria, without being too technical about it, is actually not calories, but let's call it energy. Um, so the way, if you're in an energy deficit, it's
hmm.
normal you're craving sugar. I mean, there's so many people who try to eat super healthy, they maybe go overboard because for some reason for humanity, extremes are always easier than balance. And so they would think, okay, I'm going to eat only 3 leaves of salad for the whole day. I'm going to be super healthy. No, because you're probably in an energy deficit, especially during the day. And that's why the sugar cravings typically, if you're in an energy deficit, get worse towards the afternoon and evening because you build and build and build your deficit. I mean, you build the deficit
Hmm.
up to a point where your body is screaming gummy bears at you and you basically just need to eat something, right? Or again, could be water, could be, could
Yes.
be also
So
anything.
what I like about that, and I think probably this is something that you can apply to every situation, is like someone's trying to eat healthy. What
Yeah.
does that mean? What does that mean to them? Because if in your situation, this fictitious person really thought that just eating a whole lot of spinach leaves was healthy,
Yeah.
I mean that as a starting point,
Mm.
there's something that needs to be addressed, right? So it almost
Yeah.
always starts with your programming and your definition of things, so that you're like, okay,
Yeah.
this is what I'm
Yeah.
dealing with. And, Jennifer, even though you ate 2 kilos of spinach this morning, that was probably
Yeah.
only 200 calories and you need 2000. So
Yeah.
that's why you broke down at 6 o'clock and had two
Yeah.
kilos of
Yeah.
gummy bears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, Jennifer, did you do a lot of multitasking? Because that's very exhausting for the brain. And fun fact, the brain consumes 20% of your energy. So when you do a lot of work, your brain actually needs the energy. And when you deplete your brain of good energy, not talking gummy bears, then that's where other symptoms start happening. Brain fog, different, difficulties to concentrate, to focus, and all of these things. And that's what I mean with connecting the dot, because that's the moment where you connect the dot of nutrition with,
Brain health.
neuroscience facts. Yeah.
Well, or brain performance, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so if you're not thinking that one has any influence on the other, but you're
Yeah.
suffering,
Yeah.
um, it might
Yeah.
be worthwhile
And
getting curious.
And what I'm also finding really curious and interesting nowadays is that, I mean, it's slowly coming that we see everything more holistically, luckily, right? There is this good trend towards that, but we're still seeing things in silos, and that still fascinates me. How would you really look at a high performance athlete and tell that person, okay, now you're going to sit for 10 hours straight. You're going to take two short breaks, only looking at your phone. You're going to have people talking to you on one side, your phone in the other hand, and you're only going to eat junk food. And please be high performant after this. No one would ask a high performance athlete to run a marathon after this. Yet we ask, us, in, let's say, standard desk jobs to perform like that most of the time. And that's ridiculous. How we see this as a silo, how we would also not turn to this athlete and say, okay, now you run for 8 hours straight, and then ask, why are these muscles tired? Like, why you can't, run anymore after 8 hours? No one would think of asking that. Yet we
I
ask it in this environment.
I think what you're talking about, like the infrastructure of the
Mm.
work day and the traditional work
Yeah.
day, as I understand it, like everything that we're living in was built around the Industrial Revolution, like
Mm.
including kids school schedules, the 9 to 5 work day, like that
Yeah.
evolved as
Mm.
a protection mechanism, because big industry was not giving an end to the
Mm.
shift, so they were
Mm.
literally working people to death. So what we currently have, and we've adopted and still in many corporate environments, is this
Mm.
8 and sometimes 10 hour
Mm.
workday.
Yeah.
And also extending to schools, right? It's like,
Mm.
why do you want a kid sitting down as much as we're sitting kids down? But like
Mm.
that's a whole other subject. Let's focus on the office piece.
Yeah.
So when you're hiring people for positions, and there's
Mm.
no corporate policy around, are you taking care of yourself so that you can show up to work and function?
Mm.
Like, what do you do to make sure that you sleep? Like, sleep well? Like, how are you
Yeah.
fueling yourself so that you can, have attention and contribute in meetings? Like, I feel
Mm.
like that personal responsibility is obviously left to the employee, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of curiosity nor facilitation
Mm.
by companies on how to get people to show up and perform well at work. And I think this is probably a
Mm.
beautiful bridge to what you're doing with a lot of companies. But I just wanted to, lay that as the platform. I really think it's broken.
I think it's broken too. I mean, not always. So let me start by saying in the last week, so the research is not yet finished, and I don't want to call myself a researcher, but I have been interviewing a lot of people team leaders or in the HR space for the last month. And so let's call them emerging patterns. So the emerging patterns that I, can conclude amongst these interviews, or like as a result of these interviews, is that flexibility is more and more demanded. So we're coming to a point where this rigid, let's sit down for 8 hours. I mean, people start questioning it more. And by right, because as you said, it's broken.
Yep.
The human brain
Yep.
and the human body per se is not made to sit 8 hours straight and focus. And
Mm.
also, I think worst is sometimes we beat ourselves up for not being performant after this. We wonder what is wrong with me. And that's something that I never loved. So, which is why I want to explain why you feel the way you feel, no matter if it's, from the nutrition side or both or the brain side, because there is nothing broken with you if you can't think anymore after 8 hours sitting. Also, when it comes to general health and fitness, I do think that companies should or have the responsibility to actually explain what happens if you don't stand up once per hour. Did you know, for example, right now we have studies that if you don't at least stand up once per hour, even if you do a good training once per week, it is not compensating the negative effects it has on your health, on your overall health, on your, on your, not just on your fitness, but on your overall health with long-term consequences, um, if you don't just stand up once per hour. And the standing up once per hour, it doesn't need to be squats or, cross leg. I mean, ideally it would be that next to your desk, but if you don't want to do that, it could be as simple as you saying, I'm going to go drink some water, which is not on your
Yep.
desk, right? But
Yep.
just the
Right.
fact of standing up is already much better for your health and for your brain performance. Yet we make people think something is wrong with them because they stare at their laptop for more than 2 hours and they wonder why their concentration fades. And that's no wonder, but we do expect people to work like that. So that's a whole other thing. And sorry, how did we end up here with the question? I
No,
was
I
getting
mean
off topic.
the system is broken, and
Yeah.
this is part of what I think you're doing with companies with brain fitness, right? So it's looking at you've got a workforce, and
Mm,
you want them to work in a way that
yeah.
feels good, that has good output, but
Yeah.
we're we're not giving people the tools to do this. As you
No.
mentioned, most companies don't even tell you to stand up once an hour,
No.
and
But also
that's
the
a health and
companies don't
safety
know it.
problem. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a
Well.
health and safety problem, totally. But I think also the companies hiring, they don't always know it. And that's exactly what I would, well, ideally talk to every company on this planet. Don't think I can do it, but ideally that's what I would love to do. And then let's say in a perfect world, you would talk to the management team and to the employees. Because one thing also that became as an emerging pattern, what became clear as an emerging pattern throughout these interviews that I'm having is that often the team lead is taking a lot of cognitive load that the team is not seeing. So let's say again, in a perfect world, you would have the support from management and from the team lead to change certain things, right?
Hmm.
Then you
Hmm.
would have conversations with the team lead that are a bit different to the team. And then you would have brain lab sessions with the whole team where you teach them how to move, what to do. And it could be a fun group effect. Again, there are ways to do movements that are not obvious, but if the whole team is doing it, even better, because then you can really have fun with it. You could get the tennis ball at work out and do a couple of exercises here and there. And you just reteach people how to work. And the fascinating part is that everyone will work more without working more hours because they suddenly are more switched on, better, plus is better for their health. So you could also, you know, get at some point less sick days, higher performance days, all of this. And yet it's linked to taking care of yourself differently and seeing breaks differently. And I think that's key because breaks still have this negative connotation of you're not doing work. So breaks are not the absence of work. Breaks are actually refueling your concentration.
So this is a funny tangent because there's an influencer that I follow on Instagram called Angelique Joan, and Angelique Joan has like two personalities that talk to each other. One is British, and
Okay,
the other one is
I'm gonna
her
check her out.
French counterpart. French counterpart, and
Yeah.
they're working in the same office. So I think you would love this.
Okay.
I'll send this to you later, and I'll put it in the show
Okay.
notes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
but her French persona, like,
Hmm.
always takes her breaks. Like
Yeah.
you take a coffee break is 45 minutes. It is not shorter than 45 minutes, like, and the French
Yeah.
lunch is the French lunch, and everything closes on
Yeah.
time. And
Mm,
the mirror that she gets back from her
mm,
UK colleague is like that. What do you mean you're not always available? You like it's 5 o'clock. I just
yeah.
sent you an email. And then the French
Mm,
counterpart will say, well, that's for tomorrow. And
yeah.
it's, you know, we're poking fun, but actually it's really healthy to
Mm,
take these breaks. And we're showing it in a very exaggerated, you know,
yeah.
joke.
Yeah.
Because the French culture actually is quite good at taking breaks and holding boundaries.
Yeah. Maybe a bit too good. Maybe a bit
But
too good sometimes. But yeah, you know what? I think this is a perfect moment to talk about a good break and a bad break to
okay,
really show the difference because the bad breaks could go either extreme. And
okay.
again, we're not actually looking for extremes. We're always looking for balance. Yet balance is always the hardest thing to achieve for some reason. Um, so a good break is a 5 minute break once per hour where you do some sort of movement. If you
Hmm.
have the time and energy to do something like cross body exercises, amazing. Or you do something even with a tennis ball, like I said, or something, right? If it's not the case, it could be you saying, okay, I'm going to bring something upstairs and you walk stairs 3 times up and down. It could be something simple like that. It could be also getting the coffee. There is less movement, but at least you're standing up, right? As a bad break is being on your phone. Whenever I see people taking a break and they're on their phone, they basically come back more exhausted than before. We cannot picture a break that is perfect for our brain, and yet we stare at a screen. Ideally, if I mean, for anyone just listening to this, I just did quotation marks around ideally. Ideally, you check even short videos on your phone, which by now also we have studies and we know that short videos are also actively destroying the white air, I mean, the white matter. Let's say they're making you actually more stupid than before. So there is not just the opportunity cost and the attention that you pay on your phone with a lot of short videos, it's actually making you less smart. Let's
Why?
say it like this.
Why? Tell me why.
Okay, there are a couple of things, and I'm going to be careful not to misquote the research because it's fairly new.
Hmm.
Um, I, I can't tell you exactly why it is decreasing the white matter, and we have to be careful because this is emerging
Sure.
research. So maybe in 1 year it says, oh, it's not the white, but let's say
It's
for the
something else.
moment for the moment it looks like it is decreasing the white matter in your brain when you have a lot of when you have a lot of short videos and content like this. I can tell you what is for sure certain is
Hmm.
that it is messing with your dopamine
That's what I was thinking. Like
because
the reward system of like
exactly.
the
Yeah.
excitement of the hook.
Yes, exactly. So because every short video is tapping into your reward system. So every time you watch a short video, it's as if you tell yourself, well done. You tap yourself on the shoulder, your body is telling you, oh my God, this was amazing. You got a short reward for doing nothing. Basically, you get the reward that technically you would have gotten for doing great work or an exercise or something hard. Suddenly you get it from just staring at a screen. And that is dangerous because also we are tolerant creatures. And the more you get used to something, the more you need of the same thing to feel
Yeah.
the same, which means suddenly you need more and more dopamine to feel the same level than before. And I mean, this could have long-term consequences as well. Addiction, and after addiction, we're even looking into neural cell death and things like that. So let's not go there for the moment, but let's just say it's not making you smarter when you look at short videos, and it is making you less okay with boredom. It is making you more prone to not looking for boredom. So it's decreasing your tolerance for boredom, basically. That is a
I
nicer way to put it. So constantly high reward video dependency is decreasing your tolerance for boredom, and that's
okay.
dangerous.
So that's a bad break. A bad break is on
That's a
your
bad break.
screen.
Yeah.
Um,
So you'd come
and
back to your desk and you have more, I mean, you'd be more exhausted basically than before. Another bad break could be in a corporate world too long, right? I'm not saying take 30 minutes break every hour because that's just unrealistic. So if you work for yourself and you can take a walk every 30 minutes, go do it, right? If you have the time. But I understand in a corporate setting that's not possible.
I mean, then in that case, I would say it might be interesting to have company dogs.
Oh yeah, why not? Well, then you may even have to deal with people who are allergic, so that's the other thing.
This is all solvable.
Okay, I love the idea. Why not a company pet? Yeah, that needs to go out from time to
Exactly.
time because sunlight is so good for your health too. So an ideal break, yes, you have movement, but an ideal break would be outside.
Yeah.
That would be even better.
What's really powerful to me in this conversation is a little bit of my reflection. Like I worked for like large organizations for about 20 years, and they were on site, desk bound, sometimes in like open environments.
Mm,
There was always a scenario where I was sharing the office, but I am ADHD. So I
mm,
really, my pendulum is
mm,
not being able to focus and being very frustrated, or going into hyper focus and I don't know the world exists for about 8 hours. And
yeah,
that other side of it is really great for like I can write like huge amounts, or like I can create things from end to end.
yeah,
And my output's really great, but after a period like that my brain feels like it's really squeezed out and I do need a recovery period. But that is
yeah,
not what's expected, and it's
mm,
also not how most people act in terms of traditional work productivity. And I
mm,
always felt like I was broken and that I could not
mm,
tell people how I worked. And it
mm,
wasn't until I started working on my own, like during COVID was a game changer for me because it was
mm,
permission to work from home. Work from
mm,
home took out all of that outside distraction. I could set up my
mm,
working blocks. I started understanding that, if I need to do focused work, it's quiet
mm,
time in the morning. And
mm,
then after 1 o'clock, from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock, I have a single cell amoeba in charge up there, and I need to do like really, really simple tasks. And then
okay,
my brain comes back online again between like 6 and 8 if I need to. But so
okay,
so then I start organizing my day in critical thinking in the morning,
mm,
meetings during the day where I'm just having conversations and I don't have to create anything. I'm just being present with
mm,
people. And then if I need to do something because of a deadline, I have another potential working block in the evening. That was
mm,
my own hack that I learned for myself because I was so frustrated because I felt like I can't exist in this world. I don't perform in this world. But
mm,
I don't think a lot of people talk about how hard it is
no,
to do the thing in that window. And I think there's
yeah,
a lot of fake it till you make it. And I think there's a lot of people not making it and
yeah,
struggling.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I actually think you discovered something very powerful on your own, and most of our body clocks function that way. Not exactly the same way, but at least the morning part. So the
Hmm.
first hours after waking up, and that could depend if you wake up at 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever a.m., right? So the first hours after waking up are your most productive ones, cognitively speaking. In an ideal world, that's not when you do emails, for example. That's when you do
No.
strategy and like you did critical thinking, something very exhausting for the brain, but exciting and important at the same time. So that would be mostly morning-ish time. And then types tend to, variate. And indeed, you could have people like yourself, more on ADHD or neurotypical people. It depends on also what you eat for lunch. I mean, there's so many factors how the afternoon will then look like. A funny thing I recently read about emerging ADHD research is an explanation why some ADHD people, and I'm by no means an ADHD expert,
Hmm.
but it explains
Hmm.
a lot, are considering themselves night owls. It is because it's actually when the brain is quiet, when there's no other distraction around you. And that's an explanation why a lot of ADHD people would tend to say, oh, I work best at night, but maybe it's also because at night there is no distraction. So, how much of that is biology? How much of that is the setup that we're in, right?
Hmm.
And we do know, however, sleeping at night is important for the health. So, how can you actually organize your day? Like you said, that you can work in environment without distractions. And 1 out of 10 people roughly have ADHD. So what can we do to accommodate that in a working environment without, again, creating excuses, but creating a structure where everyone can perform? You know,
Yeah.
for me, honestly, it's an ideal mix between home office and work inside the office, if possible. If we talk about office jobs, obviously, there are different jobs. Um, but that would be ideal because then you can also structure your days more flexible. You have days where you all be together and maybe you have more quiet breaks in the afternoon. I mean, so many different options. But I do think it's important to make people feel that there's nothing wrong with them just because they maybe focus differently, right?
I mean, and then this is so nuanced, right? Like it's not just the office environment. It's also like being a woman, being a mother,
Yeah.
understanding that the whole system that we're operating in was not designed by us for us. So there's that element. There was my concentration element. There was, it right at the end of me working for a company and before working for myself, I was also in the throes of perimenopause, which
Yeah,
was,
that doesn't help.
it, yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a thing. And if you're not in perimenopause and you're a woman, you're in, somewhere in your fertility journey, and that's a whole thing that needs to be addressed so that you can work comfortably during all phases of your cycle. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, there's so much. So okay, talk. So we're talking a whole lot about um, optimal function, but what you're labeling something as brain fitness. What is the concept of brain fitness, and how have you used your entrepreneurial skills to turn that into an opportunity that helps people?
Okay. So let's start by what is brain fitness actually? So for
Hmm.
me, a healthy brain fitness concept is if someone is capable of learning, adapting, and performing under stressful conditions, but also in a durable, sustainable way. So this for me would be the definition of what we should achieve. And if we talk about modern offices and, if it's now office or sometimes with client outings or whatnot, if we talk about the modern working week, uh, then an ideal brain fitness would be to apply this definition for every day and in every
Hmm.
setting, which means when you're really in the office or home office for, let's say, 8 hours straight, how can your day actually look like for you to
Hmm.
not be exhausted at the end of the day, for you not to run into burnouts 2 years later, right? Or whatever time later, really, and still perform and still think and exit work with a fairly fresh state of mind. Granted, there will be days that are worse than others. That's normal, right? That's life. We also have to appreciate it's a little bit up and down. That's fine.
Hmm.
So, for example, one of the things that I already mentioned is active breaks. How can you understand the cycles of your brain and how to work and when to do what ideally in order to not exhaust yourself? And I have to, at this point, maybe I should mention I see two extreme cases, and they're both linked to the same root, which is understanding your biology, which is some people are too resilient, right?
Hmm.
Some people push too much. And then when we talk about the extremes like burnout, burnout is not because you're weak. Burnout is because you've been too strong for too long.
Too long.
Yeah, too strong for too long, basically. You ignored your biological communication because your body is smart and it's talking to you, but you have to listen, right? And
Right.
then when you don't listen, the communication becomes louder. And at some point, your body is taking a bat and hits you over the head because, like, you didn't listen. So
Yeah.
that would be one of the extremes. And the other extreme would be not being resilient at all. And that's another phenomena that, was created there was good side of the whole home office COVID thing, and there was a bad side. And unfortunately, that would have been one of the negative consequences because people were maybe too comfortable in their own homes. And now, they get so used to it. Not everyone, I'm generalizing here, but there is a part in your brain when you don't activate it, you're almost losing it, or it doesn't become bigger. And in that case, bigger would be a good thing. And that's the area of your brain that deals with, well, let's say it notes down your rewards. And when you did something hard, this is the center that is like the secretary taking notes saying, okay, we did something difficult, and actually now we feel good, so we can do difficult things tomorrow. If you don't use this ability to do difficult things for a long time, you get used to it because again, we're creatures of tolerance, but also of habits. And
Oh,
the less hard for our brain, sometimes the better, because we tend to go the easy way because evolutionary, that's what helped us. It's just in the modern world, unfortunately, that this doesn't help us anymore.
on all
And
domains, we seek homeostasis. Like we're always looking
yeah,
for get to the plateau as quickly as
yeah,
possible.
yes, yes. So you have to also see, you have to appreciate or keep in mind these two extreme spectrums that are absolutely to be avoided. Then
Hmm.
look into your day and the office setup and how do you work. And then you can structure beautifully the day around high performance without exhausting everybody. And that'll include a lot of education. So it'll include a lot of interactive seminars, ideally, because education is a basis of understanding. And you can't expect people to change without them understanding it. Because
There's
then
a
you just, yeah, there's a disconnect, if not.
it, and there's a whole lot of awareness that's
Yeah,
involved, right? Like I've got to
yeah,
I've got to really understand what works for me so that I can create that environment. And,
yeah,
and there's a lot of intentionality in it as well, right? Like, and we're not taught to do this. It's just like show up, go to work, don't think about it. But
yeah,
you're like, hang on, think about
yeah.
it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So if we thought about it, I'm talking perfect words here, right? But let's say you had, I mentioned this at the beginning, you had strategic meetings and evaluations, even like small diagnostics with managers and team leads and the whole management team, and then the the actual team and the people on the ground even, and you see just into their days, how is it structured, and you slightly ever so restructure it, not even talking big things, and also do these seminars for education, then hopefully I can leave there and say, okay, now actually, not hopefully, but it is affecting an actual change. So, I'm walking away and actually businesses work better without working harder. I mean, without working more hours. And that's the aim. And also, and that's why I come back always to education, the fact that you don't feel guilty, you don't feel like something is wrong with you, which I think is the worst case. It's the worst feeling, one of the worst feelings you can give someone is you're not performing because it's your fault, because you don't have willpower, because you're not disciplined enough. No, no, hold on a second. First of all, motivation is an emotion, which is why I don't love using it too much. And fun fact, I did dedicate a full chapter in my book of it. It's an emotion, and emotions are unreliable. And especially when you look to women, we are not even having the same cycle every month, right? Every week. So you cannot expect someone to just get up with a 100% motivation. It's not possible. What works is structure
Yep.
and understanding why you feel the way you feel. And structure is such a big part of it. For example, when you want to go running twice per week, prepare your shoes the day before. Every evening at the beginning, you asked me for my good habits. One of my good habits is that every evening I'm preparing the breakfast table for the next day.
Yeah.
Because you get up and it's something less to think about. It's a good start. You have a nutritious meal that is already there. You or you prepare part of it the next day, but it's there. There's less friction. We have to reduce the friction in a day that is always so multi-connected. If you start on the good note with less friction, it's already a good start.
I think we would live together very well because I'm like a prep queen.
Okay.
I so I also a long time ago I did a really interesting certification. It was the Precision Nutrition Level 2 certification. It was like
Okay.
a 1 year course where you basically got to apply nutritional theory through case studies, and you were
Mm.
getting continual feedback from your mentors in the course. It was so challenging but so good. And in one of the modules, it was talking about motivation. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing that stuck in my head with motivation, which kind of freed me from ever expecting that my motivation would carry me, was this
Yeah.
idea that motivation is like a cat. It's never
Yeah.
around when you want it to be,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's gone when you need it.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's exactly it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And as you said, you have to create the environment for you to
Mm.
do the things that you need to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So you were talking about like putting your running shoes. Now, I am a horrible runner, but I'm consistent. I've done 2 times a week for 2 years, and I
Mhm.
hate every single run. Why do I do it?
Why do
A
you
lot
do
of
it?
people a lot of people ask me this because
Yeah.
because it's I do like being outside. It's the
Mm-hmm.
easiest cardio that I can do consistently. So
Mm-hmm.
I get outside, I'm training, I'm
Exactly.
doing my cardiovascular training, and I'm training my hard. Like I'm
Mm.
training my hard in a way that's not too hard, because I think training difficult, like doing the difficult things, is good. And I
Mm.
also, as a, like, you know, a big part of my career has been being a coach. I don't want to forget about what it's like to do things that you suck at,
Mm-hmm.
because like you do a lot of things that you suck at, or you
Mm.
ask people to do a lot of things that they suck at, and you don't want to lose that empathy
Mm.
for it. But the other thing that I do that helps me with my consistency is I give myself permission to be shitty.
No, but I
So
love this. You know, one of my favorite mantras that I live by is action over perfection.
yeah.
I actually created it. I mean, I don't, maybe someone said it before, but came up with it myself. And it's one thing that I have to remind myself, action over perfection, because often starting is harder than actually doing it. And often we lose ourselves in these ideal scenarios. And again, ideal, yeah, ideal doesn't always exist. I'm not saying apply action over perfection if tomorrow, you're the pilot of a passenger plane. Don't do that. If it's not, like make sure you're prepared. But in most cases, just doing it is better than not doing it at all,
Yep.
because it gives you a basis, it gives you data, it gives you
Mhm.
a feedback as well, even if it's not perfect, but then you can make it better. And the permission to be shitty. And that's also when you talked about speaking multiple languages, and it's the same for you, I imagine.
Mhm.
You also have to accept that you don't speak perfectly all the time, because otherwise, what is the alternative? You don't speak at all, right?
I think you change, like, as in another language, your personality is different than in your native language. Like when I speak
Yeah.
Dutch, I'm way more timid than I am in English, and it's because of
Okay.
my ability to express myself
Yeah.
as articulately. And
Yeah.
I mean, I am in awe of people like you who are so amazing at the ability to explain the details. I don't think I know my Dutch isn't at that level. I can communicate, but I couldn't explain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's probably
You
my French. I
explain.
mean, I can explain in French, but I'm more timid in French. That would be my French. But you know what? I'm gonna let you in on a secret,
Mhm.
and everyone who's listening. Sometimes
It's
when
not
I
a
try
secret.
to when I try to explain, let's say, more complex scenarios, I have to think a little bit more sometimes to find the words in German, which is my mother tongue, because I did spend so much time in English and doing my studies in English, and all of these research and the certificates that I made were all in English. So I have this massive vocabulary in English, not always in German, even though it is my mother tongue. So it also depends what you're used to sometimes, because your environment shapes your reality.
And I'm sure that that has a whole lot of cognitive residue that you create when you're going through three filters of language when you're going through your day. Like
Yeah, I
that's a
can.
whole thing, right?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking a lot in English by now. So that's actually, for me, English is easy. For me, it's like my second. I mean, it's something that brings joy to me when I talk.
Sure.
I sometimes, in very rare cases, when I'm super tired, I'm having this default switch sometimes still to German. I can tell it's there. And I think on one or two occasions, especially after birth, when I was super tired, I think I spoke German to my husband. And I mean, he doesn't speak German, so he just looked at me a bit like, what are you talking about? And I didn't realize it. So yeah, that did happen.
I mean, that's a whole other level of respect. I think it takes, a lot of humility and bravery to learn and persist in another language. And I also think it's really important to say that, there's a lot of women that I speak to who are not native English speakers, who are afraid to come on the podcast because they're
Oh,
afraid
really?
they won't be able to express themselves correctly.
Right.
And I think that they have such important things to say that I'd rather gather it
Mm.
messy because it
Yeah,
inspires other people to take the leap as well.
true.
So yeah, it can't be a barrier. We need to acknowledge that it exists, but it can't be a
Mm.
barrier.
No, no. Yeah, like you said, give yourself the permission to be shitty or action over perfection. But sometimes you just have to do.
Yeah, that is I think there must be like some sort of universal wisdom breadcrumb with that, because in the Peloton class that I take for my shitty running, the woman that I listen to, the instructor that I listen to, her mantra is progress, not perfection. and
Okay.
and and it really keeps me going, because I'm like, wow, this sucks and I feel like I'm really slow, but then I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, but I'm out here, and I've been out here for now 2 years, so I can't
Yeah.
be that bad. So
No, you can't. You can't. And it's two sides to this. So on one side, like I explained to you, there is this area of your brain that gives you permission to be braver in the future because you face something that is difficult. So basically, each week you are training that muscle. Each week you're giving yourself the permission to be more adventurous in the future, which is another explanation why people who start to travel and or maybe even settle abroad, why suddenly when they're confronted with day-to-day small issues, they don't feel they are as important anymore because you already did so much worse basically, and it
right.
made you stronger. So there's a part of that. Having said that, if a sport is not at all fit for your body type, I mean, you don't have to force yourself. You can, of course,
No,
also do something else.
no, that's true. I mean, but I do something that I really love, so it's almost like
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
balance.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So this is funny. Okay, so you've got something new that you're launching. Tell me
yeah.
about it, and what does it mean for people?
So the concept which I described a couple of times when I used words like brain lab or the executive talks for the teams. I think I made it actually didn't use the word executive talk. I said leadership talks. So all of this is brain at work, and brain at work is the idea that businesses can absolutely restructure their way of working or rethink and educate without making everyone work less. So actually with making everyone work better and more, but not necessarily more hours. So
Okay.
better or same result in shorter time. So that would
Smarter,
be the
not
concept.
harder. Yeah.
Smarter, not harder. Exactly. And all based on how the brain actually works and based on education and a diagnostic and a quick restructuring. A quick restructuring. That sounds like it's like this. Normally, it's not like that. So it would take a couple of conversations and looking into it. Ideally, it's in person because, of course, in person, it's a bit better. But if it's someone really far away, we can absolutely also do it by video. There is
Sure.
no problem. I mean, we're connected today. If ideally also the team has a big conference room with a big TV, we could do these exercises also digitally, where I'm saying,
Remotely.
okay,
Yep.
everyone, I'm going to send them some tennis balls, and now everyone's doing the exercise and I show you how to do it. It can be done absolutely perfectly as well in Visio. So that concept is reteaching companies how to conduct their business just in a slightly better way or much better way. And I can almost promise, no, actually, I can guarantee that everyone who's doing it will walk away better than before and with a better team, happier team, and a healthier team as well.
And when is this live? Is it live
Oh, it's
already?
live. Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's life.
Yeah,
That
yeah. I'm
that's
still
that's
conducting more
wonderful.
research on the side, so I haven't stopped. That's why I called it emerging patterns. I haven't stopped all of the interviews because I want to keep it going because it's just so useful. But it's absolutely life.
Wonderful. Now, what the one of the things that stuck with me about your about our conversation was you were talking about, finishing the workday with
Mm,
energy, like feeling like you
yes,
had something left over. And I think that this
yes.
is so important because the other thing you talked about was that very elusive idea of balance.
Mm,
And for me, balance isn't release, it's like attention. Like I think about balance like a circus artist on a tightrope, right? It's about,
oh, I see. Yeah,
like managing the tensions,
yeah, yeah.
um to stay upright.
Mm,
And this is why I think, we when we think about balance, we think about, oh well, I'm not relaxing enough, so I'm definitely not there. But I think it's about having the balance between
yeah.
worlds, and the two worlds in this case that I'm
Mm,
imagining are like the personal and professional. And I think
mm,
what sounds so amazing about what you're talking about is that I finish my workday and I have enough energy and bandwidth to actually show up for other
mm.
people in my life who are more precious to me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly like that. So that's the absolute aim. I'm not saying there are days where it's tougher. Again, it's life. There are some days that will be tougher than others. But the aim is that we all exit work and are still capable of maintaining other things outside of work. And that's what I mean with sustainable, durable, right? If you treat yourself that way, and you're good to your body and your brain,
Mm-hmm.
um, then also you have more empathy with yourself, but also with others, and you are more patient. And I think this is maybe, I mean, it may be going off topic, but also we live in a world where everyone, thanks to social media, is becoming also a little bit more egocentric. And that's absolutely something to keep in mind because we can only push ourselves so far. And the extremes will never lead us to being nicer with each other, to put it simply. So we actually need this balance in order to maintain and unlock the human potential. And I'm just afraid that, well, if we don't take care of our health and of our brain health and don't bear these things in mind, even the simple things I mentioned, like dopamine addiction, all of this, we lose a little bit of that. And that would be a pity. And I don't want to be too morose talking about these things, but there is a risk of losing human potential, even if we lose our critical thinking and, if we outsource too many things outside of our own capabilities. And again, that's why I'm saying biology is an explanation, but not an excuse. We still have to do certain choices. And that fits beautifully with your balance is about tension because there are choices to be made. And not always the easy choice is the good choice. So sometimes you have to decide against something that is created in a world that makes you addicted. So sometimes we have to make the conscious choice against something that seems so seductive, right? Because modern world is great in making us addicted to certain things, and our attention is worth money by now. We have to make these choices
And I
specifically against certain things.
Yeah, and I think one of those like really centering exercises, and this is one of my favorite tools, and I refer back to it time and time again, is the positive psychology life wheel. And if you
Mm,
look at your whole life holistically, like you like to do with the whole picture,
mm,
and then you're looking at, what am I spending my time on?
mm-hmm,
What like the domains are your relationships, your family, your community, your job, your um it can
mm,
be actually whatever you want, your
yeah.
health, um and you give yourself a score on each of those pie
Oh yeah,
charts.
yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And then
yeah.
you're like, hey, I'm at a 3 on my health. Like,
Mm,
what do I need to do to get to a 6? Where do I want to be to get to a 6? It just gives you a
mm,
perspective on, what you're investing in. And I think
mm,
that helps raise awareness on when you make choices to watch 3 hours of short films on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or
yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
and then you haven't made any connections with the people who are important to you in your household because you
Mm,
showed up exhausted from work, and the only
mm.
thing that you could think of to do, or the only thing you wanted to do to unplug, was this dopamine loop.
Yeah.
So that didn't actually
That is
help
dangerous.
you.
Mm.
Yeah, that didn't help you,
Yeah.
connect more, feel better, sleep better, all of those things.
Yeah. And I'm
So
going to say something controversial though. This loop where you go into this scrolling, or some people even call it now revenge scrolling or revenge bedtime scrolling or whatever, it's perfectly normal. You should feel the way you feel because of everything else, because of your dopamine levels and everything. So the only way out is education. The only way out is nipping in the bud, but understanding why. Because by yourself, you shouldn't feel the want to get out of it. And that's why I'm saying, there is this human potential, human connection that can be lost if you don't understand why. Because you absolutely have to get out of the 3 hour scrolling loop because it's not at all healthy for you nor for your relationships.
and definitely not right before bed.
No, then you have a messy sleep.
Yeah.
Your brain thinks it's daytime because of all the blue light from the screen, and then you wake up at 3 a.m. and you wonder why, and you can't sleep, and it's just because your brain thought, oh, this is a longer nap, this is not yet nighttime. Your melatonin levels will be all messed up, and then you wake up even more tired. You wake up tired, you have more cortisol, you're more stressed, you eat worse, you have less
You will
patience,
eat the
less
gummy
focus.
bears.
You eat gummy bears. So it's a whole vicious cycle. And by yourself, it may be really hard to get out of it. So you have to A, understand why, and B, force yourself.
Wonderful. So they they can check out your first book, look out for your second book. We're going to connect people to your website so
Thank you.
that they can
Yeah.
get in touch with you and understand how, like, what you're doing is you're redefining what good looks like at work right now. And I don't think enough people are talking about it because not enough people have complained about it.
Yeah,
So
that's the thing. Yeah. I think people complain about it in their head, but they don't say it out loud.
yeah, it's like on the outside because there's a consequence to
Mhm.
complaining in
Yeah.
terms of a
Yeah.
career path. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Plus maybe admitting defeat. I'm not strong enough. I'm not
yeah,
capable enough. Yeah.
there's a whole lot bundled in with that. But I think that
Yeah.
by offering a holistic solution, you'll address a lot of the unspoken problems that are holding organizations back and holding
Mm,
people back, and
mm,
will create a whole lot more bandwidth for a happier and more rich life.
mm.
Well done,
Hopefully.
Tanja. At the
Thank you.
collective, we love to spotlight other women doing great work. Is there anyone that you would like to give a shout out to in your network? Who is she and what she's doing?
Okay, yeah. I mean, while I would love to name all of you, I know you don't want to hear your name at this point, but you are really amazing too, and everyone in the collective team. But I would like to give a shout out to um Anna Milani. I hope I'm not butchering the name in my pronunciation. Anna
Yes,
Milani. So
Miliani. Yes.
Milani. I spoke to Anna 2 weeks ago, and I didn't know yet I'm coming here, so it kind of fits perfectly. So 2 weeks ago, she mentioned her work to me, and she is in the field of she has a proper brain gym. When I say proper, I mean she has a studio in Singapore where she's doing a whole very scientific based assessment from head to toe in terms of physical fitness, but also brain fitness. And she's doing wonderful work. It's very um, I don't want to say exclusive, but let's say it's very extensive, right? So it's a whole body transformation. So whoever has the time and capability and is in Singapore, I would absolutely go and see her and do it. And
It's
she's very passionate about
wonderful.
it too.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you two connected because it was
Yeah,
something that I thought about on this podcast. I was like, I
yeah,
wonder if Tanja has connected with Anna because
yeah,
there's such overlap between what you're
mm,
talking about and what you're doing. There's great alignment.
yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
a wonderful conversation. And yes, until next time.
Until next time, thank you so much, Jen. Have a good afternoon.
You too. Thanks for listening to Connecting the Dots. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, share it with someone who'd enjoy it too. You can find all of our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you follow the show, leave a rating. It helps more people discover our work. Until next time, keep connecting the dots and keep building the future you want to see.